All right. So, yeah, I was thinking instead of doing the whole introduction thing, we could just dive right into it. And uh, I did do some background research on you, and it's pretty fascinating. Your background actually is quite in alignment with my background. Not in the sense that I had a near-death experience, but as far as what we're doing right now in life and trying to help others
Mhm.
wake up and realize their true nature. Yeah, you had a near-death experience. I had a in-life death experience, but they're pretty much the same thing. So yeah, I'm thrilled to be talking with you, and I'm not sure where to start exactly. I know we wanted to talk about the after effects of NDEs and how to best integrate um, that experience into life and access that love and that freedom more easily. So maybe I'll let you take off where you want to with that.
So after my first NDE, while I was ice climbing when I was 21 years old, I came back an entirely different person. And the after effects were everything. There was nothing that wasn't an after effect. My perception of the world so radically shifted that the structure of the world as I was living in it was feeble and frail and thin and weak. But from it, behind it, sort of, yeah, behind it, this light was pouring through, especially through people and anything nature, animals, chickadees, maple trees. But the structure of it was celluloid, and it was like it was like watching a projection. Only I was in the projection because I had a body, but I was also above my body. I was looking through sort of like an avatar in a game, but much more experiential. So that was the initial after effect. But then came all these other things. My relationships with people changed because I had this broadcast of love that was indiscriminate, pouring from me into everybody, which meant it was positive and negative. The positive was I was loving my enemies with ease, but I was falling in love with everyone I met, and that illumination that was pouring, that wasn't me, that was pouring out of me, had a reciprocal effect, and it got me into a fair amount of trouble here and there, especially with my girlfriend. Not that I stepped over the line, it's just that it was trouble everywhere we went.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
and eventually with my girlfriend at the time, after I came back, I would meditate in order to aim my interior world back to the reality that I knew and missed and understood with a capital R. In this physical world, I was pretty well lost. And I found that the more I tried to integrate into the world, the less I actually did. And so I spent a lot of my time back inside of my meditation, back inside myself, learning to quiet my mind, learning to quiet myself through a variety of techniques I had learned in high school because I went to a Catholic high school, learned meditation, centering prayer back in the 70s. And then through Yogananda and Paramahansa Yogananda and the Yoga Sutras, primarily the Yoga Sutras. And they gave me a roadmap for my practice of Kriya Yoga. And so when I would go inside, I would come out very super otherworldly spacey. You know how after you meditate, you're kind of like moving in slow mo. It was like that. Only I was even. You know how Quicksilver is like a Marvel comic or the Flash,
Yeah.
I was the opposite of that. That I was moving so slowly in
Slow
my
mo. Yeah.
super.
Reminds me when I do hypnosis with people, just after I bring them out of hypnosis, especially these podcasts with NDE-ers, because I have them go into the light again, and then when they come out of hypnosis, yeah, it takes them a few minutes to. Although I'm assuming this took you more than just a few minutes, but
Well, I lost a girlfriend over it eventually. Because it would catapult me into a half a day
mm,
of kind of like walking in slow mo and being Mr. Observant. Oh, look at that. There's a ladybug.
Mhm.
And so it was, and it was, well, that was one of the after effects. The other ones, the big ones that played out for me in the long run, aren't the super popular ones like the psychic ones, which have an interactive aspect of my life every day. But the ones that interacted most practically in people's lives around me as a helper were was courage and fortitude, loyalty, strength, fearlessness. I came back completely unafraid. My body will get afraid. I'll be in a car wreck and I'll get the metal taste in my mouth and all that kind of stuff. But not afraid of death at all. Zero, zippo. And that one new perspective empowered everything I did and allowed me to be uh, more courageous than I would have been otherwise in social settings, uh, in my work, life risking kind of things. Psychically, I have I right now psychically. Let me talk about how it works for me right now. Is that I do a lot of counseling, and when I listen intensely to a person with a pencil in my hand, as I listen to their story, ideas and images just pop into my head, and I'll say them, and all the time somebody will say to me, oh, well, let me put it this way. I will not have thought about firemen in plaid pants for like 30 years. And suddenly I'll get this image of firemen in plaid pants and use it in an example. And they'll be like, I just pulled out my grandfather's photograph and he was a fireman in plaid pants. I saw it this morning for the first time in 7 years. So those kind of
Mm.
synchronicities happen all the time. They're small, but they're helpful to people. They help me
Validate.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
What advice would you have for people who have had near-death experiences and um, obviously are transformed by the experience, but are feeling like they're in no man's land and not really knowing which way to go, left or right? Um, I guess for the newbie near-death experiencer, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, one of the great things now is that there's a community of us and you don't have to go it alone. That's the first thing. Don't keep it yourself. Find maybe an international association for near death studies group and go to the meeting and you'll find other people like yourself. Check out YouTube, contact people. It's super disorienting. It there is no aspect of human life that it does not impact everything. And you remain the same person, same like appearance and same character, but everything about you shifts. And that means that if you imagine a spider's web and you're in a whole series of relationships and you grab one corner of that spider's web and you yank on it, the whole thing gets distorted. You are the distortion factor now. And
Mhm.
it's lonesome, and it's for me it was lonesome and depressing because I couldn't communicate with anybody about this thing that even when I tried to say it, I could never say it. And if I did say it, people might think I'm crazy. But nowadays, so two bits of advice: talk to other people like yourself. We have a community now, and we're global. But meditation really is you might want to consider having an interior practice to learn um, silence in order to listen to the voice that comes back with you, not to tell it anything, not to try to grab at it, but to practice the stepping out of the way of its presence. And this it is also you. So there's this human self that a meditation helps to work with the mind to slow it down and stop it and listen, and that just kind of reveals what's already present for you. And listen, listen to it. Don't expect to integrate quickly. It takes a decade or more. It took me two. I'm still integrating 40 something years later because this is a radical change. If I'm going to use a metaphor, it's a change at your DNA level. And I don't think my DNA actually changed, okay? But my relationship with it sure did.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You. your particular path after your NDE does sound quite a bit different than a lot of others who've shared their experiences. You must have been ready for a lot greater spiritual transformation, you could say, by the sounds of it. You've practiced meditation for over 40 years, you were saying, and um, so so clearly there's possibility to go really deep with your near death experience if you're open to that, uh, because rather than just writing a book about the light or whatever, and identifying with being somebody who had a near death experience, you can actually use it as a tool, by the sounds of it, uh,
Yes.
to awaken in this life before the body dies.
Yes, and that's exactly what happened to me. And the reason why I went on that path was twofold. One, as a child, I began having uh, mystical experiences that were out of the ordinary. And what I mean by that is that as I began my studies, I realized through reading the ancient mystical teachers in the West and in the East that my childhood mystical experiences were similar to those that were being talked about, say, for instance, in the Rhineland in the Middle Ages, in the Rhineland in the Middle Ages. So I was sort of primed and prepped for all of this. So I had this mystical attitude. But when I came back, I was so utterly alone, having been exposed through I was an English major, through Emerson and Thoreau and Emily Dickinson and these people. That during that period of writing, people were looking to the East, so I easily found the Eastern books, and I discovered that all of the great mystical singleness teachers, oneness teachers, going back thousands of years, they were able to take their mystical experience and mine it. And I was so bereft here and so alone and so desperate that the only thing I knew was the light. And so I went in singular pursuit of it, trusting that what Yogananda said, that the science of Kriya Yoga gives the result of, you practice this thing, these are the results you get. And so I found this, and I think this gets to the after gifts. Instead of pursuing the after gifts, I pursue the oneness of being, and all these after gifts come to me. I don't have to polish any one of them up. I just step out of the way, and my interior world over these 40 years has expanded so that the gifts, what I need it's sort of like magic. What I need just appears, and that doesn't mean my life is easy and things are, someone's paying my taxes for me. I don't mean that.
And it's interesting because the near-death experience is pretty much like you were just describing. I mean, you were, well, forced to let go. You let go of yourself, and then look what comes. Look what happens. Everything comes to you. So, yeah, that's really beautiful. So what else? What other areas? We don't have a whole lot of time. So is there any areas in particular of importance that you think are worth sharing to help others?
Yeah, two things. One, if you go in pursuit of your own NDE and pursue it honestly, without speculation, just practice being in, recollecting the experience, being in the space, and emptying yourself, you'll discover that it never goes away, and it always has more to give. It just keeps giving and giving and giving. It's very grounding in the world. Now, if you happen to have an NDE or some kind of mystical experience, and you don't want to practice meditation, you don't have to do any of those things, because in the end, and I talk a lot about death, when you die, you're going to graduate from here. And it's a graduation, say, like right now, you're an amoeba here. I'm an amoeba here. And I'm going to graduate not only at the top of my class, I'm going to have 15 PhDs and the big house on the hill all at once. There's this, in a twinkling of the eye, when you leave your body, when you turn when you can accept the light that it's being offered, the gifts that you've pursued in this life or missed in this life are there manifold, many times over. So love the one you're with, love the people you need to love, and let it all kind of take care of itself, if that's okay too.
Yeah. 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 I don't know if you remember, but I've started a new podcast with hypnosis, using hypnosis with people who've had NDEs. And essentially what started to happen is those who take part in it with me find that afterwards their gifts or the presence they've felt with the light and all of that is amplified. And so yeah, and that's just a process of going in, becoming silent, and being willing to trust more, trust life
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really profound stuff.
Well, it sounds like what you're doing for people is what I do for myself. It's a sort of self hypnosis where my practice is to quiet my mind to the place where I have these moments or many moments where I bask in the radiance of the presence that feeds me. And the more I do that, the more present it becomes. It never lessens, it always grows.
Right. And I guess you could say that's kind of a process of dying while you're in the body, like you're dying to the character of yourself so that the reality of reality becomes more
Yeah,
potent.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. All
Well,
right.
Matt, are we all done? We're good. Has
Well,
to go.
no. I wasn't gonna end it. What were you gonna say?
I was just going to push along what you said by saying there's this saying over this the door at Mount Athos in Greece at a monastery, and it says, "If you die before you die, then when you die, you will not die." And so, the more we die to ourselves in our daily life, our attachment to our egoic self, the more present heaven becomes here. And then, when you go, it's like you've already been there.
Yeah, that would be what that Jesus fellow meant by saving you from death, right? It's dying before you die. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. Thank you for sitting with me. And yeah, I could probably talk to you for another hour. Maybe we could do that again sometime.
Sometime, but kids come first.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of them. So
Take care of yourself then.
yes, thank you. You too.
I
And
will.
I'll stay in touch.
Good. Nice to talk to you, Kyle. Peace to
Thanks,
you.
Peter. Bye for now.